You're tuned into the High at Nine News Hour, where you'll hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation, reform, data, technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and enthogenics. Together, we're building a stronger community and fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck, Rico Lamitte, and yours truly, Nicole West, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis, coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific. Thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us.
Oh, yeah. I can't hear you, Rico. You're on mute.
Rico, you're quiet.
You're on mute.
Oh, yeah. You guys hear
There
me?
we go.
Right
yes,
on.
now we hear you, bro.
Good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday, October 25th, 2022, and National Merry Music Day to all my Jamaican music lovers out there. Chucky, the Notorious Killer Doll Day for those who felt it was necessary for that shit. National Greasy Foods Day. Remember, you are what you eat. And National Sourest Day. To all my glass half empty folks out there, keep believing it will never get better. Thank you all for joining and getting high at 9 with us. Once again, it's also high noon on the East Coast. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to High at 9 News on all social media platforms. We're live weekdays on YouTube and Twitch, audio only on Clubhouse. But if you do choose the Clubhouse route, you can also participate in the show by raising your hand. And if you have a brief comment on the story presented. Today's first story is coming from no other than the longest continuously operating retailer in the industry, known for his affinity of smoking the best weed in the world, also known as Gucci Blanco to the Mar-a-Lago staff, White Gucci to the Delta 8 hustlers in Detroit, but we currently know him as the highest Republican, always supporting the political party sure to piss you off the most. Y'all know who it is coming to stage first? Jason Beck. What you got for us today, my man?
Oh, yeah. Good morning, Rico. Good morning, Nicole. Good morning, Gretchen and Nicole. Hope everyone is having an amazing Tuesday today. And not sure who's getting the background noise, but if we could hit mute, that'd be appreciated, because there's some big news going on today because a Russian court has rejected Brittany Grenier's appeal of a 9-year sentence. A Moscow court recently rejected Brittany Grenier's appeal of her 9-year sentence on drug charges on Tuesday, a completely anticipated result in a trial that U.S. and international officials have called an illegitimate proceeding. U.S. officials have said they believe Russia will eventually send the WNBA star home in a prisoner swap, but have expressed frustration over what they say is Russia's failure to respond to the significant offer from the United States made in June. We are aware of the news out of Russia that Brittany Grenier will continue to be wrongfully detained under intolerable circumstances after having to undergo another sham judicial proceeding today, U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said in a statement. Grenier took part in the Moscow Regional Court hearing via video conference. In the ruling, the court stated that the time Grenier will have to serve in prison will be recalculated with her time in pretrial detention taken into account, meaning Grenier will serve about 8 years in prison. The result was not what we expected, Grenier's attorney said. Maria Biologova and Alexander Boykov said in a statement, the verdict contains numerous defects, and we hoped that the Court of Appeals would take them into consideration. We still think the punishment is excessive and it contradicts to the existing court practice. The attorneys noted they needed to discuss any further appeal with Grenier, but we generally think that we must use all available legal tools, they state. Several officials have said in recent weeks that they believe that Russia will not agree seriously to negotiations until after the U.S. midterm elections, November 8th, not wanting to give Biden's administration a political victory. For Grenier, who has been held for more than 8 months, her immediate concern is how quickly she will be transferred to one of Russia's notorious penal colonies. She was sentenced to serve out her term in one, but has remained in a relatively safer Moscow jail during the appeal. The lawyer Bologava told ESPN last week that it can take weeks or months for a prisoner to be transferred. There is no timetable prescribed by law. Legal experts say Grenier is at the whim and mercy of the Russian system, as she has been for all along. Grenier was arrested on February 17th while trying to enter Russia to join her club team in Lichtenberg. Customs officials said they found vape pen cartridges containing hash oil, and she pleaded guilty in July, telling the court she had packed them inadvertently. U.S. officials declared her to be wrongfully detained in May and began seeking a prisoner swap with Russia for Grenier and former U.S. Marine Paul Whelan, who has been held in Russia since December of 2018. Officials said the State Department offered to trade Vikur Bout, a convicted arms dealer serving a 25-year sentence in the United States. And Bout has been in U.S. custody since 2008, but officials have said Russia has not made a serious counteroffer and has requested the return of a man the United States doesn't have in custody, Vadim Kolosnikov, who is currently in a German prison under a murder conviction. Well, I'll tell you what, I didn't anticipate any I never anticipated that Brittany would get out in this appeals. I think it's a total kangaroo court what's going on in Russia, and I wish her all the best while she's detained. I never anticipated that. Reporting for the High at 9 News.
Well, you
Griner.
know,
Yeah, it's Griner, man. Come on.
Griner.
It's
Like-
not Grenier.
A D.
it's definitely not Grenier. It's definitely Griner.
For sure, no.
Did she become French overnight? Where did you get Grenier?
I know. I always thought
That's
it
a
was
nice way to
Grenier.
pronounce it, though, but that's not it.
That's not it. You know how I feel about this.
Get him, Nicole. Get him.
Well,
I mean, Biden has now let out all simple possession prisoners out of federal prison.
All free.
How many of those were there? How many of those were there?
Simple possession. But
I'll be your air quotes, Nicole.
but I have a problem with the fact that there are still people sitting in prison with any cannabis charges, period. Here in the United States, I feel sorry for Brittany that she's having to deal with this. And then I have a question. You mentioned that she's in a much safer prison now before she gets transferred to another prison that is less safe. Like,
I mean, that's what the article says, Nicole. I mean, you're 100% right. I kind of tripped out a little bit on that myself, but I mean, you're in jail in Russia. I don't think anything is safe. I've watched Locked Up Abroad plenty of times.
There's even in Russia, there's definitely places that they would send more high, what you would call, more of the corporate criminals. I mean,
Right.
I don't know which prison that is, but there's every country, no matter how fucking shitty it is, has rich criminals that end up in a place that they get treated a little bit, club fed like.
okay, but so they're sending her to a less safe prison because
Afterwards. Yeah.
Like,
They probably have like an international situation, right? Where they like hold people in that situation. And then they're like, okay, now she's staying. So kick her to like the fucking Twin Towers of Los Angeles prison.
The fact that she's a Black lesbian woman in a Russian prison does not make it safe for her anywhere in Russia, in prison or not, like, period.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not gonna get any better before it gets worse. Like I just hope that she's safe out there and she remains as mentally sound as possible. I don't think there's any good that's gonna come out of this. Too much politics behind it. We're in the fog of war, and we have no idea what these negotiations are looking like. So I just pray that she ends up on the right side of this, and she comes home safe when she does.
And maybe when she comes home safe, she will be an advocate for letting cannabis prosecuted defendants out of prison. Maybe that will be her new train that she rides on.
Ooh.
I'm so confused because I just looked up the law in regards to simple possession in Russia. She shouldn't be in jail for more than 6 weeks.
Oh, well,
according to simple possession.
It wasn't simple possession because she was caught at the border, so that's an international.
Oh, that's right.
So therefore, it's
smuggling.
an escalated charge.
Smuggling.
Yeah, smuggling.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. I was like, it was like a vape pen, right? It was a one pen.
I mean, we don't know how many pens it was.
Yeah,
They just had hash oil in them.
They said there's 2 hashish oil pens. It has not been confirmed if it was Delta 8 or not, but she is from Texas.
I'm willing to bet it's Delta 8. I'll put money on it.
It's
You want
sad.
to take any takers, Gretchen?
Dude, I know not to bet with you. But you ain't gonna say that.
Was there
Fast
anybody
Spartans,
at the
baby.
yeah, was there anybody at the pardon last night holding up signs for Britney for BG?
Nope.
It says a total of 0.7 grams. One was a 0.25 and one was a 0.5. So 0.75 grams. There was 2 vape pens, and 0.75 grams is the total amount of by weight.
Not even a gram.
Not even a full gram.
They hit her with a charge, I think, intent to distribute too.
Just fucking hustling that
Is
one
that
vape
because
pen.
she had 2 of them?
Yes.
Jeez.
She's like, one rip, $2.
I thought there were ruples out there. Ruples.
Rubles.
Yes.
Ruples?
Yeah, ruples.
What's the conversion on that?
Free Brittany Griner. Free her.
1 ruple equals 3 scruples.
0.016 US dollar per Russian ruble.
Damn.
0.16. So 1 pen, 10 cents.
10 cents.
Yeah.
It's sad either way, and I hope that I hope it gets resolved amicably, and I just hope that she gets home safe. I don't know when it's.
Do we know what prisoner we're offering to trade?
Well, we're trying to get her and Paul Weiland, the teacher, back. And from my understanding, the only trade that they have talked about is Russia said that they want this arms dealer back. And then now apparently in the article quotes saying that Russia is also asking for a gentleman who is actually being detained in Germany, and which the U.S. has zero control of being able to let that person go.
And if they bring in Germany, they're gonna have some kind of oil deal, packed into that shit too. It's gonna complicate things even further.
Big oil, big deals. Oh yeah. Yes. Well, yes, we're gonna keep it moving. Thank you so much for your time, you guys, with that story. But coming up next, she's a cannabis business consultant, an industry veteran, a bullshit buster, and a general all self-proclaimed data bitch, posting over 13 years in the regulated market, but with deep roots in the legacy industry as well. So much legacy roots that she did time for a cannabis crime. That's right, it's none other than the Nicole West.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction, Jason, and everyone for being patient with us this morning as we get really high at 9 or high noon on the East Coast with you guys. This morning, my headline's actually coming out of the Cannabis Business Times. I've been following this story for a while in regards to Curaleaf and those mislabeled products. I'm not sure if you guys remember, but a couple months back, maybe about a month and a half ago, there was a lot of Curaleaf CBD product that was released on the market that was in fact THC product, and it was sold across the nation. And now there is a lawsuit that is a class action lawsuit that is being paid out. So Curaleaf has been ordered to pay another $100,000 over mislabeled cannabis product. Now I'm also a little bit blown away because I'm thinking about how this could have affected people not being aware that they were taking THC. We've talked about the people that are losing their children. We're talking about the people that are losing their jobs. I mean, there are definitely a lot of conversations to the idea of somebody having accidentally taken THC when they're not aware of it that needs to be addressed. But multi-state cannabis operator Curaleaf will pay out another $100,000 over mislabeled products that the company released in Oregon last year. The multi-state operator already settled 10 lawsuits in January and agreed in August to a $130,000 fine and a 23-day license suspension in Oregon, according to the Oregon Live report. 23 days, it seems pretty weak. Curaleaf will pay an additional $100,000 to settle separate class action lawsuits stemming from this blunder. The Oregon Liquor Cannabis Control Commission, or the OLCC, issued a recall in September of 2021 for a product produced by Cura CS LLC and sold under Curaleaf Select brand. The product was labeled as hemp-derived CBD tincture, but it actually contained undisclosed levels of THC, according to the OLCC press release announced in the recall. The OLCC then explained that the illicit recall, or the initial recall of a few days later, included select tinctures that was labeled as containing 1,000 milligrams of THC because the drops did not actually contain any THC. So it was a full flip-flop of the package. Curaleaf, which acquired Cura in 2019, acknowledged last year that the company somehow confused the two tinctures and mislabeled them. At least 13 people were reported to ingesting the mislabeled products, and at least 3 visited the emergency room, and at least one of those individuals was hospitalized. The incident has resulted in multiple lawsuits against Curaleaf, which cited human error as the cause of the mishap. The company has since adopted a new safety protocol. Oregon Live reported, although Curaleaf voluntarily removed thousands of products from medical cannabis dispensary shelves in New York in August after the company switched to the wet weight to the dry weight testing in the state, resulting in higher potencies on all of the product labels. That was a fun one to follow too. The wrongful death case related to the Oregon labeling error was settled last week and on confidential terms, according to the Oregon Live, while 2 other personal injury cases are still pending. The latest settlement was filed on October 20th with U.S. District Court in Portland and covers anyone else who bought the mislabeled products. The news outlet reported it's estimated that 500 individuals will receive payments between $150 and $200 per person, depending on the number of claims filed. The average cost of the product that issued is about $25, so consumers will get back 6 to 8 times of their purchase price through this settlement. Michael Fuller, a Portland-based attorney who is representing the plaintiffs, told the Oregon Live the class action lawsuit does not restrict consumers from filing separate personal injury claims, according to the news outlet. Now, I do want to make a mention of a couple things. There's several states that have regulations against allowing manufacturers, and this is something that I've always been like, well, that doesn't seem fair. They should be able to share their space, right? There are a lot of states that do not allow you to manufacture products other than your cannabis products in your cannabis facilities. California, Colorado, you are not allowed to just make your CBD products in your cannabis-based facility. And this is the reason why. How easy it is for us to mislabel a product, and not trying to be a jerk, but man, we be getting high. Like the opportunity for an item to go out wrong on accident, not to mention the potential of malicious activity and the opportunity for people to literally conspire against your business when people hate you and surprise, surprise, there are people within your company that fucking hate you. So putting yourself into a situation that they could actually utilize this against you and get you into a lot of trouble, I think is a huge, huge no-no. I think a lot of companies should learn from this. There needs to be way more protocols if, in fact, you are doing both CBD and THC in one product or one facility. But I'm super curious to hear what everyone has to say. Do you think $200 would be enough money for you if you took something that you were not expecting to take and you ended up fucking super high and, maybe you got fired from your job, maybe you failed the drug test, who knows what happened? Maybe you were on probation and had to take regular drug tests. There's a lot of things that could go into this conversation, but I definitely am curious what everyone else has to say. And I'm Nicole West, getting high at 9 with y'all.
Okay, so I think they should. This is too many times Curaleaf. You should just shut it down. Just shut down the entire operation. Like that. Maybe that, maybe then they won't make those mistakes again. Like just shut them down. Close the store, sell, and make sure that everybody that you harmed in your booth with your mistake gets paid from whatever you sell.
Well, I think if we want this industry to grow, like we can't be haters. Like this happens in every other industry. There's been like recalls for I can't even name the names. So shit happens. I think we all waking up every day is a risk. So at some point, I don't think we can be on so eggshell about everything.
Yeah, and stuff like this is especially going to happen from the largest producers. Is bound to happen from them, and is bound to be amplified if anything happened with those entities first, rather than the smaller ones. So it's unfortunate. I think there's going to be a lot more stuff like this coming out.
Robbie, legally. Go ahead, Nicole.
I was going to say the idea of manufacturing the same products in the same facility is probably my biggest thing. Whether or not shutting them down, I think that's a fun response. But I think more than anything, when we're having this conversation, the safety of being able to produce both of those products when we're at the level of regulation we are for one of them and not for the other, I think that first of all, it makes it very difficult. If I'm looking at cameras and I'm like, what just left this facility? I don't fucking know. Was it CBD or was it THC? Like there's so many variables to that. So my argument is not to shut them down. My argument is like, hey, this backs up the reason why I don't think we should be making non-weed products in weed facilities if we're under the regulations and the way that we are. Similar situations, you like alcohol bottling companies can't just bottle water in their alcohol bottling plants. Same idea.
Robbie, what do you think legally it would be appropriate financial recourse in regards to someone taking this type of product that wasn't intended to taking this type of product?
Yeah, I mean, look, I can't come up with a number here, but like I think they said they cited human errors, so there's obviously some sort of negligence claim. So maybe there's a product liability claim, So they'll just handle it under like normal standard tort law. And fortunately, we live in the United States where we have the greatest tort recoveries in the world. So people will get fucking paid out. And
side note, though, have you ever seen one of these lawsuits actually go all the way through with the insurance claims? Because the insurance is going to be one of the bigger issues and how hard they fucking push back on covering a lot.
Oh, no, they push back, but you're still usually better off than you would have been. Like, you know what I mean?
Sure. But how
I'm not
are they
saying
going
it's
to,
worth
you think they're going to be able to
getting
get,
injured,
you think they're going to be able to get good insurance again?
I think they're going to settle and they're going to be fine.
Yeah, I think everyone's going to look. I think this is a shitty thing that happened. I think they need to financially sort of de-incentivize Curaleaf and other companies to like be negligent with their actions when it comes to this stuff. I think the people that were hurt should be compensated, but we have a robust legal system that will just deal with all of that. But shutting people down or being overly critical, I think it's tough right now.
Robbie, you don't think they're entitled to
we can go back
millions of
even further
dollars?
though. How far back do we want to go? Do we want to start talking about because of the federal prohibition, because of Schedule 1, because the cost of capital is so high, because there is no safe banking, they can't hire the PhDs and the personnel and the lean manufacturing experts.
Yeah, but real life, I'm just gonna be I'm gonna be a real bust out asshole on this. The amount of money that I've watched Curaleaf blow on fucking parties and things that rhyme with the word that I just explained what they use to get rid of things is astounding to
Nicole,
me.
you and I were always doing
fucking astounding to me. I'm sure I was there. But if you can spend that kind of money on that kind of shit and do all that dumbass shit, I'm a little astonished in my mind that 23 days is the what they're getting with the level of scrutiny that we go through. Like that's a I'm gonna quote Rico on a follow the money. If that were some normal fucking business that this happened to, if this were Rico's cookies and he accidentally fucking gave a bunch of people, he would be getting his business would be shut down right now. He would be getting made a fucking example of, and this wouldn't be what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a bunch of fucking an MSO who's got a gang of money, and then everyone's like, oh, just be quiet, it's like an insurance thing.
I think you're a little nuts there, Nicole. I have to agree with Robbie. I mean, if Heinz messed up some shit in their ketchup, I mean, they're not.
If Heinz accidentally gave everyone alcohol and minors drank alcohol,
we're not talking about alcohol. Shit happens. I'm sorry. Some people went to the emergency room because they didn't realize what they were taking. It didn't kill anybody. No one's made for life.
There's also a legal concept of assumption of risk. So like if there's a big fucking sign in front of a hole that says don't walk into this fucking hole, and someone walks into the hole, like the defendant's going to be like, no, they assume the risk. So I'm sure Curaleaf is making some sort of argument like, hey, they're consuming some sort of hemp product. This is like a different type of product. Like who knows, right? Like you never want people to get hurt, but I don't want to stifle like corporations and businesses either, because I think that's what makes America great.
I want to stifle corporations that do bad business, that put out bad products.
No, I want to just.
This is a mistake.
Yeah.
No. In general,
Curaleaf is now responsible for the first 2 deaths.
The first two deaths are on Curaleaf's.
Are on Curaleaf.
Docket. All right. Well, I think you're going to be hard pressed to find someone who is going to say 100% these deaths are because of Curaleaf. I'm sure there's some underlying conditions, some other reasons. I mean, as activists, we all go around touting how cannabis doesn't kill people.
Wait, Gretchen, are you saying they died of a fentanyl overdose? That's just wrong.
They had a heart condition. They had something else, some pre-morbidity that caused their death.
Cannabis never comes until Curaleaf.
Well,
I'm just saying.
Blame it on fentanyl.
This is not
what
a
great way
product
for us to segue into our next speaker. Thank you so much, everyone, for that lively banter. And up next, we have Rico Lamitte. Rico's the dopest dad in the world, founder of Cannavision Global, decentralized media network. He enjoys bringing people together from the opposite ends of the world and enjoys to make them learn about the benefits of the great plant cannabis. Also, apparently, he likes to do sports activities that hurt him. I think that some of those things are called chasing children, because that is a full contact sport these days. Rico, what do you have for us today?
Thank you again for that beautiful intro, Nicole. Another fantastic one coming from your way. My headline today is from Normal, but is also covered by Kyle Yeager. I got to give props to Kyle Yeager for covering this first. NAACP calls for immediate passage of safe banking legislation. Jason Beck. NAACP. Ooh. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People's Board of Directors is calling for Congress to pass Safe Banking Plus in a push that'll explicitly allow banks to provide financial services to state-licensed cannabis businesses. The U.S. House of Representatives passed the original safe banking measure 7 times now, but members of the Senate have yet to take up the bill. However, with some senators now expressing support for passing a remixed version of the act immediately following midterm elections, the storied civil rights organization has decided it's time to jump on the bandwagon. But does an endorsement from the 114-year-old W.E.B. Du Bois founded organization even matter anymore? The NAACP has found itself in a strange position over the last couple of decades, choosing on urgent issues plaguing Black communities more to comment and support from the sidelines rather than leading the pack. Their conservative roots and reluctance to move quickly on matters more pressing to younger generations is the whole damn reason Black Lives Matter became a thing. It took until 2019 for the NAACP to first publicly speak out in support of weed legislation when it called on Congress to remove cannabis from the list of federal controlled substances and provide state entrepreneurship grants for BIPOC communities. In wake of 2020's international uprisings sparked by the public lynchings of Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd, it was a decentralized BLM prominent vocal supporter of cannabis reform and social equity on the front lines, garnering all the media attention. But more recent allegations of BLM's insufficient support of women's causes and leadership's misappropriation of donor funds has opened up a window of opportunity for the traditionally slow-moving NAACP to reestablish itself as in alignment with Black cannabis advocates. So is it officially comeback season for your parents' favorite Black political organization? The NAACP's cannabis resolution states the Safe Banking Act could enable cannabis businesses with social equity licenses, diverse ownership licenses, or other licenses made available by states with medical and adult use cannabis laws that aim to foster a diverse and equitable industry to better compete in the industry if it was coupled with federal descheduling of marijuana and explicitly provided for fair terms and rates for Black-owned and social equity licensed cannabis businesses. They need to shorten that shit. While I'm usually out with the old, in with the new, burn it all down because ain't no growth like new growth kind of guy, I think that the NAACP's got it right with the timing on this one, and with the absence of other prominent Black organizations in power to move the needle of public opinion one way or another. Public support of Safe Banking Plus just might be the generational bridge building catalyst the old organization's been desperately looking for. Federal legalization's right around the corner, and in order for Black communities to get the most bang for our buck out of whatever happens when the smoke clears, we need a unified message. And while I think there's no better politically active organization currently better positioned to speak on a unified front than Black issues, I'm gonna need them to evolve a little bit further into the 21st century on that acronym before offering my full support. I'm Rico Lamitte, dopest dad on the street, reporting for High at 9 News, interested in hearing everyone else's thoughts.
Pass safe banking already.
Plus.
The NAACP, I launched the chapter for Minorities for Medical Marijuana in Georgia in 2017. And when I approached the NAACP in Georgia at the time, they were not a fan of cannabis there. And from my experience with other state directors throughout the South, and just in general, it doesn't have to be in the South, actually, cannabis they were not a fan. And so it's interesting that they come out now on safe banking. They have not publicly supported any legislation that supports expungement or has any type of social justice issue.
They supported the MORE Act. They did support the MORE Act. They came out in support of that, the last iteration. I think before the new year.
It's the timing for me and that frustrates me so much with this organization. It's not like they're a new organization. They've been around too long to not address this issue publicly before in the last 5 years. I mean, come on, what are you guys waiting for? And that's what frustrates me. I'm glad that they're coming out now. It's about damn time. And I'd like them to say and be more public about legislation.
Yeah.
Nicole, I have to disagree with you there. I worked with the NAACP last year on an event which was about criminal justice reform, and it was pertaining to cannabis. They have not been vocal, like you say. They are not out there and about, but they have been doing some things quietly. I have no problem with the NAACP getting behind safe banking. They spent $500,000 last year lobbying the government. That's a lot more than the cannabis industry as a whole does. I mean, we need people who have a voice, who have a record anywhere in Washington to get behind what we're doing. Because as I saw yesterday, the cannabis lobby needs some improvement. And so any help we can get is a good thing.
Yes, I agree. And I got to give a big shout out to the late Donnie Anderson out here. Jason knows Donnie. I don't know if anybody else out in the LA area.
Oh, yeah.
He passed away this past year, and he was the NAACP cannabis chair, and he was trying to get them to be vocal supporters of the movement too. He was working lockstep with Virgil Grant out here with social equity, the godfather of social equity himself. And he passed away last year, and I really haven't heard much from the California NAACP since his passing on anything on cannabis. So we need their help. And like I said, when in the reading of my story, with the somewhat fall from grace from a lot of the things that were going on with BLM, we needed to be on a unified front as Black people as we move into federal legalization, just to have a unified message. We need to be in lockstep with each other on messaging, and we need to just hash the things out from the generational divide that there is there. The older or Black organizations just have not been vocal about cannabis legislation, and the Black business community has suffered because of that. Period.
Well, and I understand where they're coming from being quiet. I mean, they look at the war on drugs and how their population has been disproportionately affected. So they definitely do not want to get behind cannabis because they just see it as a perpetuation of what has happened in the past. So when the Congressional Black Caucus has gotten on board with a few things, they do one event in DC for the past couple of years. But if we saw more support coming from these minority groups pushing their agendas, I think you could see a lot more getting done for minorities in the cannabis space when it comes to legislation.
I agree. I agree. And a lot of people don't really understand the Black community. Like the older Black community is very conservative, period. They're very conservative. So a lot of the stuff that the younger generations that we stand for, it just does not jive with a lot of the stuff that they do and the way that they move. They move a lot slower. They're a lot more reserved when it comes to hopping on the bandwagon with any kind of new thinking. And that's something that we need to like really connect with the elders in our community to make sure that they understand the urgency that is needed to be behind this movement. It's not something that we can just stand by and let everybody else wait and see what happens for us to get in on this, because everything else, Rome is burning around us and cannabis is the only thing that is moving upward right now. So we need to get in this and we need to be in lockstep with each other and get on message. Anybody else?
All right. No, I think that's good.
You did amazing with that, Rico. That was fantastic.
Yeah. So we're actually at our halfway point. So we want to go ahead and get a quick bill paid with a commercial break. At True Classic OG, we live by one motto: stay true. We stay true to our legacy cut of True OG that's always fresh, piney, gassy, and delicious. We represent the spirit, hustle, and diversity of our great city of angels. And we stay true to the spirit of this plant, doing everything in-house to ensure that you get the highest quality and consistency with every batch. And that's what's made us LA's favorite OG. True classic OG. Stay true, Los Angeles. The thoughts and opinions in general shade thrown on the High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers, not those of any other speaker or its followers. The statements made do not constitute legal or accounting advice, and our speakers make no representation regarding the legal status of any country and substance, area, territories, authorities. The views expressed in this room do not establish fiduciary relationships. Our sponsors do not apply, constitute the endorsement by author expression of any opinion whatsoever, any part of any speaker or anyone on stage. If you're an easily offended person, the show is probably not for you. Also, maybe it's time to pass safe banking.
Ding, 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 ding. Flying into LAX and you want to taste some of the best weed in the world? Then stop by LAXCC, the closest dispensary to LAX, located at 8332 Lincoln Boulevard and open from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. Always make LAXCC your first stop when you touch down in LA and score like a winner. And don't forget to tell them I sent you and mention you'd like to get High at 9 for 10% off your full order. Ding, ding, ding.
She's well known in DC circles for cooking up excellence and baking delicious treats. And unfortunately, last night, this redhead conservative with proven long-form Mayflower roots did not get arrested for civil disobedience in front of on the White House lawn. But she still has a highly questionable love for the original safe banking, and she is the founder of Panoptic Strategies and our very own Washington Insider. Gretchen Gailey, what you got for us on this beautiful was this Tuesday? Tuesday afternoon. What you got for us?
Good afternoon, Rico. My headline is coming from Marijuana Moment, and it's a recap of the activities in Washington yesterday. Activists arrested at White House protest pushing Biden to release marijuana prisoners. An activist was arrested, not me, on Monday afternoon amid a protest staged outside of the White House to call attention to President Joe Biden's yet unfulfilled promise to release people incarcerated over marijuana. After several hours of speeches and civil disobedience, at one point shutting down a major street in Washington, D.C. while carrying a giant 50-foot inflatable joint, one activist was arrested by Secret Service after breaching a White House gate. Advocates were planning for additional arrests, but agents spoke with organizers and seemed to convince the group not to breach additional barriers. Speeches continued with many participants demanding the release of the arrested activists, as well as federal marijuana prisoners broadly. The advocate who breached the gates, Sarah Noon of Columbia University's chapter of Students for Sensible Drug Policy, was forced to the ground by officers who shouted at onlookers to stay back. I am here today because Biden made a promise to release all cannabis prisoners, and he has fallen short of that promise. We are civil resistors, civil because we are friends of the government, but we cannot cooperate with the unfulfilled promise from the leader of our government. That was Sarah Noon said in a statement. SSDP, the Last Prisoner Project, DCMJ, and other groups organized the protest, which involved call and response chants and speeches from advocates and formerly incarcerated people. Biden's own comments supporting decriminalization were played over a loudspeaker on repeat. At one point, activists blocked an entrance to the nearby old executive office building where many White House staffers work, and then moved to an entrance of the White House itself. The protests then moved to the Democratic National Committee headquarters, with activists reviving their speeches and chants around 420. The action was planned before Biden made a surprise announcement this month, pardoning about 6,500 people who've committed federal marijuana possession offenses, as well as those who violated the law in Washington, D.C. The president also directed an administrative review of cannabis rescheduling. But by Biden's own admission, the clemency resulted in 0 instances where people are being released from prison over marijuana crimes. Activists said the lack of relief, despite Biden's stated position that nobody should be in jail because of cannabis, was reason enough to follow through with the protests. We are here to say that 0 is not good enough as far as his promise to our community, to the folks that are currently incarcerated, and to the nation that wants to go forward in ending the war on drugs and making sure nobody spends time in prison for cannabis offenses ever again. That was SSDP Executive Director Jason Ortiz. Biden isn't able to unilaterally force states to issue comparable pardons at the state level, though he has asked governors to follow the administration's lead. Advocates have also pushed the president to expand the relief for groups that weren't covered under the limited proclamation, such as immigrants and those who've sold marijuana. The president has been touting his mass pardon, indicating that he views it as a rallying point ahead of next month's midterm election, but advocates aren't sold on Biden's claim that the pardon constitutes a fulfilled promise. For one, a presidential pardon isn't exactly expunging records as Biden said he supports. It may restore certain civil liberties, but the record isn't fully cleared and may still be used against a person. And then there's the fact that there are an estimated 2,800 people currently in federal prison for marijuana convictions that aren't limited to simple possession. LPP Executive Director Sarah Gersten said that if President Biden truly wants to repair the harms of our nation's unjust policy of prohibition, this initial progress must be followed up with bolder action that would actually lead to freedom for cannabis prisoners. I could not agree with LPP more. What Biden did was empty promises and empty pardons. He did jack nothing for this industry, and people need to recognize that. Although I would say from the advocates that I saw outside the White House and the DNC yesterday, I've seen rowdier Girl Scout meetings. So the cannabis protesters need to step up their game if they really want to be taken a bit more seriously. This is Gretchen for High at 9 News.
I love this, Gretchen.
Yes.
Thank you. How many people were there total, would you say, protesting with you yesterday?
I will say I did arrive late because I had some meetings. When I was there was about 50 people at the White House. I was told at the most they probably had a couple hundred. My experience with Washington protests, 50 is a good turnout. I would be very surprised if there were a couple hundred people there.
I was gonna say I think I saw a better reaction from the Catalyst Street team assembling here in LA about the union issues, like than that, which is sad. That's I mean, it sucks that that's a real number, but also, Gretchen, I agree that the industry needs help, but it's this weird fucked up line, right? Because we have some people that take it way too far, and then we look like we're crazy, right? And then they go too far. And there's a lot of those people that are, trailblazers in what has happened in this industry, and the world has worn them down. And now when they get on the microphone, everyone's like, fuck, take the mic away right now. And I'm not going to name names, but everyone knows some of these people that I'm talking about. Everyone's like, we love you, but stop talking. And so like, we have this weird balance that we have to go through to find, I want to say, new blood to get out there and represent us right. And it's needed. And like, take it from Gretchen, who's in Washington. Like, this was weak. Girl Scouts were going to beat us up.
Hey, Jeremiah in the back, can you share the my screen over here so we can see a picture of this poor young girl?
Hold on, is she hold on, does she have a pointed hat on?
Yes, they wear these little Smurf hats. I don't know where they got them from or why they think it will help their cause.
I know exactly where that comes from. That's 100% Adam right there.
I know it's Adam, but it's just
that is the most outed.
It is the dumbest thing ever. It makes our industry looks totally dysfunctional and us like total crazy hippies. It's a bad look.
If she's the most outed person of your whole movement, man, like it's time to re-up.
And I would say the biggest problem with their civil disobedience is what they believe is civil disobedience is lighting up a joint. And so that completely mellows out the crowd. And, a half hour into the thing, everyone's just laying on the ground, just chilling out. They're like done.
The weed is doing us disservice.
So you're saying, Gretchen, that at the next cannabis protest, we should just have like an open bar and have everybody turn it up outside the White House?
Fucking hammered, drunk, and start breaking shit.
I just want them a little livelier. I want that. I mean, it was pretty sad. I will say, and I forget his last name, Luke. He is the head of the state chapter for Maryland's Normal. He was fiery. I could listen to him all day and all night. He is who we need on the loudspeaker, yelling, jumping up and down. He was great.
And I'm gonna go ahead and say, because nobody else has addressed the elephant in the room here, like it's Steve D'Angelo, man. Like Steve D'Angelo is the mouthpiece, and if he's the one who is like trying to push for all of this, if anybody has seen any of his social media and everything, he was just ransacked by everybody, by prominent vocal leaders over the years in the cannabis industry, just tearing him down in his messaging because of his involvement with big cannabis. He's been talking out both sides of his mouth. Like one side, he's like, oh yeah, I'm pro like small farmer, pro this and pro that. And then on the other side, I'm like dude, you are the reason why they lifted the cultivation cap when we were trying to legalize here. So if you have somebody like that, like leading the charge, and he's the vocal, he's the mouthpiece of your movement, like you might need to rethink that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think we definitely walk a fine line between some of the legacy OGs, and I know people don't want to look at Steve D'Angelo like that, but he has been in this fight since the 70s, pushing hard.
I don't know about all that.
You get into big business with this, and you're all of a sudden you're a turncoat. I mean, you got to have it one way or the other.
Yeah,
we officially
both in the space to
we officially stopped stretching with Gretchen once she touts Steve D's abilities. We are going to go ahead and hop to our next correspondent on that one. Thank you so much for that headline, Gretchen, and that conversation, and for showing up and letting us know how it actually was, because I feel like a lot of times we don't get to know what's really happening in the world unless we get somebody out there on the street. So up next, we have Robbie Pinaminini. Robbie is actually a dear friend of mine, and I am so glad to bring him to the stage. He's a cannabis investor, business developer, and licensing attorney. He spends his days calling the shots on what's next as the head of California operations of the delivery machine that is known as Ease, and his nights recovering from that mentally exhausting day of regulatory gymnastics as a lawyer and trusted advisor. Robbie, what do you have for us today?
Nicole, thanks for that wonderful intro. Today's headline is SEC charges cannabis producer Cronos, former executive, with accounting fraud. After settling securities violations with Canadian regulators, Cronos Group was hit again on Monday when the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission charged the Toronto-based cannabis producer and its former chief commercial officer with accounting fraud. Cronos and the former executive William Hilson offered to settle the matter without admitting or denying guilt, by agreeing to cease and desist from future violations of the charged provisions, according to an SEC news release. The agency said the company and Hilson had failed to properly account for millions of dollars of revenue and committed other accounting misconduct in multiple reporting periods. In agreeing to settle with Cronos, the SEC said the company wouldn't need to pay a financial penalty given its timely self-reporting, significant cooperation, and remediation. Going forward, Cronos has agreed to retain an independent compliance consultant to review its financial reporting and accounting controls. Hilson agreed to a 3-year ban from serving as an officer or director of any U.S. publicly traded company. He also agreed to be suspended from appearing and practicing before the SEC as an accountant for at least 3 years. The SEC said Hilson also agreed to pay $54,000 to Ontario securities regulators. Cronos and Hilson ran afoul of the Ontario Securities Commission for improperly reporting revenue the company did not earn and also overstating virtually all of its U.S. goodwill and a significant portion of its U.S. intangible assets by a collective amount of $234.9 million. We are pleased to have resolved these matters, Cronos CEO Mike Gorenstein said in a news release Monday. Important steps have been taken to strengthen our internal controls, and we are committed to continuing this work. Once a high flyer like other Canadian cannabis companies that enjoyed an initial bull period after federal legalization in 2018, Cronos catapulted to prominence in 2019 after tobacco giant Altria invested $1.8 billion in the company. It was seen at the time as a strong endorsement of the cannabis industry's rosy future. The company listed on the NASDAQ in 2019. However, the same trouble plaguing other one-time unicorns also visited Cronos. The company lost 75% of its 2019 valuation by 2021. During that time, Cronos refiled earnings reports in 2020 and again in 2022 after reviewing the appropriateness of revenue claimed after a transaction with an unidentified third party. So this is really no surprise here. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of this, particularly with cannabis companies. I think, one thing, that we've seen in the financial sector is, corporate governance has been brought home. People have been put in jail. People and companies have fallen, and they've been hit with fines. And I think we're going to start seeing that now in cannabis with all the funny accounting, the hiding of money, not following general corporate governance procedures.
Also, this is like the most real thing I can say. The amount of people that have no rights running the fucking books for these businesses, that are in charge of the books for these businesses, is insurmountable. I have never seen more incompetent financial people in my life in any large scale group of people. Like literally, if you know how to run a spreadsheet, you became a fucking accountant at a weed business all of a sudden. I've been watching some of these people run some of their sales numbers. I mean, I'm not an accountant. I'm not a CPA. I do logistics. I do business. I help people find ways to make money, ways to save money. So I understand the dollars and cents of things. And I have twice in meetings in the past year called an accountant out mid-meeting and been like, there's no way those numbers are right. And then be like, what? And I'm like, I just know there's no way those numbers are right. On an operations level, you're wrong. And made them go back and then found some sort of like fractional error that ended up in a spreadsheet, like fucking 9 spreadsheets ago, how they're all going to be billionaires. And I'm like, that you're wrong. And then, you know.
I mean, you're not wrong with a lot of the stuff you're saying there, Nicole, but I just have to say I really, really love this guy, Neil Kaufman, the New York-based corporate securities attorney, and his statement from this just reinforces the narrative that cannabis companies cannot be trusted. That's what concerns me.
I mean, he's not wrong. I mean, do you guys trust cannabis companies?
But this is corporations, period.
You can't trust corporations. No, you can't trust corporations. I don't think, here's the difference. I think a majority of corporations that are doing fucking weird, shady shit, I think a lot of them are being shady. I think there is an insurmountable amount of incompetence in the financial level. I don't necessarily think it's all malice. The amount of people that are just doing dumb shit, not actually trying to cook books, don't realize that they're accidentally cooking books is insane.
Then they realize that they are, and they're like, "Oh, what am I gonna do? Just smoke some."
weed. And they're like, "Oh shit, I'm not an accountant. I'm just the
smoke some weed and this
bro."
will go.
I had somebody say to me at a fucking board meeting, "I'm not an accountant. I got hired to be the IT guy," and I was like,
"But aren't corporations people?"
Don't do that, Jason.
Shout out to Mr. Binders full of women himself.
Yes.
Yeah, Binders full of women.
Favorite.
Yeah, he had Binders full.
Anyways, let's hop to our correspondent. Come on. Thank you for that story, Robbie.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Robbie.
Yes.
Oh, excuse me. Coming up next. She's a cannabis patient, a plant medicine advocate, also the founder of Purple Plant Magic, national brand ambassador for Black Buddha Cannabis, and the Encyclopedia on Power 88 in Las Vegas every Wednesday morning. It is none other than the Nicole Buffon.
Thank you so much, Jason, for that introduction. And good morning, all my fellow correspondents at High at 9 and all of our audience listening in from wherever you are in the world. This story, I know yesterday we had a couple of hemp stories, but there's no reason not to, reiterate the truth and the fact that hemp is a viable resource. So my story comes out of Arizona, out of Tucson, Arizona, by Brooke Ragnar, a house that basically heats and cools itself, doesn't catch fire, and helps reverse climate change. May sound too good to be true. That's what Tucson general contractor hears from people when she describes homes made with hemp lime. You can grow a 2,000 square foot home on 4 acres in one season, which is 4 months, Machado said. You can heat and cool it so easily, especially in a place like here in the desert. It's just a whole lot less energy to heat and cool your house. Machado mixes hemp stalks with lime and water and shapes it into bricks. No, this is not the kind of hemp that creates a high. There are thousands of varieties of cannabis, and industrial hemp must have less than 0.3% of THC, the psychotropic chemical found in marijuana. Hemp cultivation became legal at the federal level with the 2018 Farm Bill. Most of us know that. There's a total stigma to it still, though, because it's cannabis, but people don't understand. It's not a smokable cannabis. The bricks are not structural. They go inside a lumber structure in place of materials such as sheetrock or insulation. Non-corrosive hemp rebar is also gaining high ratings and popularity as a way to strengthen structures. The technique is not new. Builders used hemp in China's Great Wall, in the pyramids of Giza, and more recently to preserve objects at London's Science Museum. Machado believes it's a great fit in Arizona too. It gets stronger over time, resists pests and fire. Hemp homes in Australia survived the recent huge bushfire, and the American Society for Testing Materials gives hemp lime its highest rating. Machado is also a mom and says that makes her so passionate about safer housing. She started Old Pueblo Hemp Company to build it herself. I'm building this for all of them, she said. It's our oldest cultivated crop, and it's lasts a long time. So why have we not heard more about it? Bruce Lard, who grows and researches industrial hemp at Avara Valley Growers, said it's the chicken and the egg. Industrial hemp can't move forward without nearby processing, but Arizona processors need funding to get started. Ultimately, when it gets to the point where we are processing enough, not just here in Arizona, but across the country, we'll be able to build carbon negative structures. Until processing becomes more accessible, hemp bricks are still rather expensive, adding roughly 60 or more per square foot. Just last week, Pennsylvania became the latest state to approve funding to support industrial hemp. Lard is hoping Arizona lawmakers also will see it as an attractive and responsible investment, as hemp uses less water than other southern Arizona crops and regenerates the soil. Once the structures are built, they continue to sequester carbon. They're fireproof, they won't rot or mold. Machado agreed that could be good news for southern Arizona's future. If we can grow our own building material, that could put Tucson on the map as one of the most sustainable cities in the US. Well, I agree with her and I agree with Bruce. I know how important hemp is, but if there's no one to process it into the right materials that they need for building, then we are at a standstill. This is Nicole Buffon reporting for High at 9 News. I'd love to hear what my correspondents think about this hemp story.
Thank you so much for covering, Nicole. Like as a huge supporter of all things hemp, like we need to hemp the world, and a lot of our infrastructure issues that we deal with on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis, like a lot of these issues can be remedied by hempcrete and hemp building solutions. Like even if you don't agree with everything else along with the cannabis industry, like hemp solutions can help us out a lot and push us further into the future quicker.
So Nicole, you're telling me that the pyramids were made from hempcrete?
No, I'm saying that they used hemp fibers in helping to build the pyramids. I don't know.
So how do you know that was not hempcrete then?
Well, I mean, it was their version of hempcrete.
That's like version 1, right?
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Aliens built the pyramids, man. Let's be real.
So
using hempcrete.
The current situation with hemp is like mounting pretty quickly. 3M is jumping on right now. 3M has a lot of fucking, you guys know what 3M, but like they're like the manufacturer of like pretty much anything stickum.
They make anything.
All this, okay. So they're in a lot of trouble for their permanent chemicals that are being left from their processing. And so there's a lot of awareness that hemp does remediation in land. So we're about to get an epic amount of hemp throughout the world. I want to say it was something like 13 million acres that they know for sure throughout like all over the world that there's 3M facilities have been damaged by these different chemicals from the processing of their plastics and glues and whatever. So I'm curious to know, like, I know you don't want to use oil from the remediated material, like ever. You never, like, do not let them make you fucking CBD oil out of stuff that they've used to remediate the ground because it's sucking all of the toxins up, right? I'm curious about whether or not that has a similar effect, and if there could be like not radiation, but like if you could absorb the toxins if it gets processed into a material, or like how do we make sure that we remediate the remediated, because we're about to get
that has
so
to be treated
much
as toxic waste. That has to be treated as toxic waste, because
and then now my concern,
you're pulling all the toxicity out of the earth and going into that plant, and so that's all there.
There's currently not regulations on that in a big way. And like when we buy CBD crude from like China, a lot of Chinese hemp is used to remediate, and they don't have regulations as to, oh, we can't reuse this. So they'll literally extract everything out of remediated product and ship it. And so there's like a lot of heavy metals and shit. So I'm curious if that would happen in the bricks.
But how cool would it be if the Incredible Hulk came from hemp radiation?
That'd be better.
Radiation.
That'd be way better.
He starts growing
like his hair starts ass Hulk ever.
His hair starts growing into like braids of flour.
Hulk would smash that. Tell you what.
But also, they're trying to grow it in Arizona. I think that'll be hard for them to grow hemp in Arizona. Like not to be. I mean, I know there's some places that have decent agriculture in there. Bro, no, you can't grow fucking hemp indoor. That's the dumbest thing. I mean, you can. You physically can.
I have indoor hemp. It's fine.
Well, but you're saying
it's not for fiber.
But you're saying it's too dry. Dry to even create a.
It's too dry and hot.
Right.
Yeah, it's too dry and hot to grow it at the scale you want.
So dealing with hemp textiles as I have, because my company, we make hoodies and everything. The biggest problem is just infrastructure, and 3M jumping on the bandwagon. If 3M's on the bandwagon here, it can catapult us into the future. That's been one of our biggest hurdles to clear. Was the fact there's only 5 viable hemp mills here in the U.S. right now, because everybody wants to consume. Everybody wants extracted hemp and everything.
Everyone wants Delta 8, bro.
Nobody wants to build
Delta 8. HHC.
But I'm concerned that 3M's jump is because they have to remediate their toxins, right? Yeah. That's the conversation I want to make sure we're not missing. Like, we're about to get a gang of hemp over 12, I wanted to say it was 12 or 13 million acres. It was like something like 11,000 square feet or square miles of property. And so it was like 12 million acres of property throughout the world. Belgium is the reason why this is happening. Belgium is suing 3M for like deaths because the water has been so fucked up because of some of their processing facilities, because of some of these plastics. And so Belgium's the first place that's getting like hectares of hemp to clean this fucking dirt up.
DuPont. Oh, well, yeah, we cover a story earlier about like DuPont and the shit that they're putting out right now, and they're getting sued by everybody for all the, was it like PFAS or something like that?
Yep.
And hemp is actually being used by Native Americans are putting forward in remediating those fields that have been tainted by using hemp. So hemp, everything, hemp the world.
Hemp, hooray! What a great way to end our show today. Thank you all. Nicole, great story. Definitely. Let's try to get more hemp out there. So thank you everyone for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry. Thank you to the haters for still talking about us, and an even bigger thank you to True Classic and LAXCC for helping us keep the lights on. Thank you to the correspondents for being amazing, and to Cannabis for giving us a reason to do this. And an exceptionally big thank you to 3 is 4 for helping us to create a space in this cannabis miniverse. Thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us.
Bye.
You are tuned in to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebs and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and enthogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck, Rico Lamitte, and Nicole West, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Thank you for getting high at 9 with us.